Most action fantasy series nowadays involve players or hunters fighting against monsters as if they were in a game. The main characters are awakened with supernatural abilities and skills, and they are classified depending on their strength, with S class being the strongest, while E or F class being the weakest. Battles normally take place in another world called dungeons, but the monsters could also get transported to Earth through some portal or gate. And when that happens, there's chaos on Earth. So it's up to the protagonist to save the world. This kind of plot is very common among action fantasy South Korean webtoons or web novels, and the similarities don't end there. But it's actually possible for an action fantasy story to consist of pretty much all the generic tropes but will still offer something unique and admirable. Have you read a story wherein the main character is the breadwinner of the family? This commonly happens if the parents are sick or absent or dead, and or if he has younger siblings to raise. So he's acting like their parent. Well, if you read a lot of action fantasy series, that's probably a yes, right? But have you read a story wherein the main characters being a parental figure is one of the main themes of the story? Well, okay, I guess you may have if the story's main character is a parent himself or herself. It's somewhat applicable to main characters that raise creatures too, not to mention titles which have the found family trope. But what if that main character isn't even anyone's biological parent, yet the primary theme is the act of raising people and creatures itself? I personally haven't known any main character like that. Well, not until Han Yoojin of My S-Class Hunters has been created at least. In the story of My S-Class Hunters, the protagonist Han Yoojin and his younger brother Han Yoojin lost their parents at an early age. So Yujin raised his little brother on his own. But when monsters suddenly popped out of gates and caused chaos in their world, Yoojin awakened as an S-Class. Yoojin separated from Yujin in hopes of keeping his older brother safe, but that only made Yujin feel abandoned. Yujin also awakened, but only as an F-Class. With that, he suffered from discrimination and poverty. But when Yujin finally realized that his brother cared about him all along, it was already too late. So he goes back to the past in order to make things right. And that's where the main story begins. From some of the plot's keywords, it can be easily observed that the world of My S-Class Hunters is indeed very similar to many other action fantasy manhwa and web novels out there. However, it also has plenty of things that make it so different from the rest. And one of that is its main character. Unlike his action fantasy protagonist counterparts, Yujin is no overpowered character. Well, at least not in strength. His exclusive skills are the overpowered ones, but they're actually not even combat related. It's because his special skills are more of the supportive type. But his support is not simply through healing or buffs, like what a supporting character would typically possess. Although he is indeed somewhat like the brains of the group, he's not exactly the most intelligent person among them. And even though he no longer has the capacity to provide financial support, he still used to feed and provide shelter for Yoohyun, and he is now able to do the same for others through Yoohyun's money. What makes him so different from his supporting character counterparts is that he cannot be classified under just one or few particular types of support, because he had covered and could cover pretty much all types of support. He is the absolute type of support that no one would have expected in an action fantasy story, nor would have expected to be crucial to one's life. It's even applicable in the real world. So what kind of supporter is he? Well, he is the custodian. For those not familiar with the term, a custodian is a person entrusted with the custody of something or someone. Basically, a caretaker. I think guardian could be another word for it too. So, like in this sample sentence, it meant that the aunt is now acting as the children's parent since their biological parents died. The custodian or caretaker doesn't necessarily refer to parents or foster parents only, but it could refer to anyone who raised or looked after someone or something else. So, they could be our older siblings, our grandparents, our seniors, our teachers or mentors or coaches, and so on. But Yujin doesn't only represent people who had taken custody of fellow humans, but even animals or other living creatures. If we look into the Korean version of his title, which is Yangyugja, it is translated as a fosterer, a rearer, a breeder, and a supporter. A fosterer is someone who is somehow designated to care for and nurture someone. A rearer is someone who nurtures children or animals, while a breeder is, well, someone who breeds animals or plants. I suppose a supporter is, of course, someone who supports, and support could be in a lot of forms. If we sum up these definitions to one word, he's basically a nurturer. A nurturer is someone who nurtures others by offering food, protection, support, encouragement, or training. Yujin has definitely demonstrated all those nurturer traits in his acts towards those he cares about throughout the series. Are you familiar with this meme of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Hemsworth with their kids? Well, Yujin is definitely the Robert type. Yujin's nurturing side is perfectly symbolized by his skills icon. Look at that wholesome embrace. We can see that there is tenderness, security, warmth, and love gently wrapped around the child. Yujin is very gentle and protective to people and creatures, especially to those under his custody. He would even endure various hardships and put himself in dangerous situations if it's for the sake of his children. Yes, he is the type who will not hesitate in sacrificing himself for his loved ones. His nurturing trait is certainly very admirable, and it's not different from nurturers in the real world, right? Yujin's skills are closely associated to an actual custodian. He recruits people or creatures to be under his custody when he mentions the keywords. But it's not that simple. The recipient of the keywords should acknowledge its meaning. So, if the criteria has been met, that child will be under his custody. No matter the age gap, Yujin treats the people and creatures under his custody as his kids. Anyway, Yujin will be gaining more skills as we read more of the series. But in this video, we'll focus on the first 4 skills that he attained under his legendary custodian title, which are: first is the Super Nanny. What it actually does is that he can boost the growth rate of his target when he utters the keywords. And this is applicable to either a person or an animal under his custody. So this is similar to custodians who give words of encouragement to those under their care. It's motivating to work harder if there's someone who believes in you, right? Myung-woo had been very depressed until he meets his ray of light, who is none other than Yujin. Then Yujin's second skill is who's a good boy or girl. From the skill name alone, it's about someone complimenting their child. And that's pretty much how Yujin's skill works, literally. His target's growth rate will further increase depending on the number of people who hears him say the keywords. So this is similar to custodians that boast about their children to others. It may be a bit embarrassing for some, but when someone is boasting your achievements to others, it shows how proud they are for you, right? Yujin is certainly among them as he excitedly showcases his baby's talents in a TV show. While his third skill is, as the twig is bent, so grows the tree. So this skill allows him to find promising individuals and unleash their maximum potential. It's somewhat like a cheat on Yujin's case since he can accurately identify which individuals have an actual potential. But it is not that different from the trainers or coaches that see someone's potential to do great in real life. Some famous athletes and musicians might not have reached their dreams if there hadn't been someone who didn't give up on them. So, when Yujin found out that Sunghan can still be stronger than his current state, Yujin made himself involved in a dangerous mission just to guarantee in making that goal possible. And last but not the least is the skill called Final Thanks. If someone under his custody dies, their memories, abilities, and powers are transferred to him. Although there are some limits, he gets double the power. So, when Yoo-hyun died, Yujin became as overpowered as his OP protagonist counterparts. But he attained the power not through some luck or effort, but with a price. A price that he is not very happy about. This situation is similar to when children give their life to their parents. But even if we owe them a lot, our nurturers absolutely hate the idea of their children outliving them. It's the same with Yujin. He'd rather not use the Final Thanks skill ever. He hates it so much that he threw it out of his sight. But he had no choice when Yoo-hyun died, and that made him very, very heartbroken. So, in a nutshell, Yujin's skills represent the skills and actions of actual custodians. The keywords used in activating those custodian skills are related as well. Before regression, Yujin's keywords used to be hang in there, and this is a normal phrase when encouraging someone. Same as when our caretakers try to motivate and cheer us up. But when Yujin's custodian skill gets upgraded to legendary class, the keywords also needed to be upgraded, of course. The new keywords should be worthy of legendary class too. And what other keywords can best represent that other than I love you? Love makes parents stronger, and love also makes their children strong. Love makes the world go round. Love conquers all. Behold, the power of love. The My S-Class Hunters series made it possible to highlight and present the power of love without being romance-centric. After all, romantic love is not the only form of love. Although it makes many people cringe, expressions of love to those we care about, whether in actions or words, are nothing to be ashamed of. Well, it might have appeared as a joke in the series, but it makes a lot of sense to Yujin's role and title. It's the highest form of encouragement one could give, but at the same time, it is something very difficult to say and express. Being top tier and very challenging to do makes the keywords very suitable to be considered as legendary class. Yujin represents the custodians who raised us since we were babies or when we were helpless and vulnerable. We depended on our caretakers a lot to grow well and be guided to the right path. But actually, our caretakers are also imperfect. They have many flaws and weaknesses. But despite that, they are willing to go through so many hardships and do the impossible if it means protecting us. And that's because of the power of love. With that, Yujin's skill is like making being a parent a superpower. But that's not just in fiction. Because being a parent is, in fact, a real superpower. Action fantasy characters with extraordinary abilities are indeed very amazing. But that's nothing compared to the superheroes who bring out the best in them. Strength is not only measured by the number of lives that are saved, but also on how much one can do for someone else's sake. This is why I was so glad that Yujin was designed as a physically weak character. And it's because he's already strong enough. His entire being alone was enough to change the lives of those around him. So, even if he is weak, the others still needed him a lot. And even if he becomes fragile and helpless, the things he had done had a long-lasting effect. For all the good things he did for others, he deserves to receive their acts of gratitude. So it's similar with our very own custodians. No matter how much we've grown, and even if we started to raise others as well, we will always be their children. But sadly, their unconditional love is sometimes forgotten or taken for granted. Some even hurt them. But there's no denying that even if our real-life nurturers get old and become weak, their significance to us is just the same. After all, they literally saved us. In my S-Class Hunters, the saving ability of real-life nurturers is portrayed by Yujin's Custodian title. Yujin's role and mission is to raise S-Class Hunters that will defend the world from upcoming disasters. And that's pretty much the same as saying Yujin is the one who is saving the world. After all, if he doesn't look after these powerful people, then the world will be destroyed. So in other words, like our real-life custodians, Yujin is also a superhero. The My S-Class Hunter series helps us appreciate the people who raised us much more. We may also be able to see ourselves in its characters. Han Yoojin is like the embodiment of various types of custodians. So, parents and parental figures in the real world will find him very relatable. It's not limited to parents of fellow humans, but this is applicable to fur parents as well. A lot of us raise our pets as if they are our own children, right? And if ever you have yet to experience raising or looking after someone, Yujin would still remind you of someone you know. Besides, all of us had to have been under someone's care in some way, since, well, there's no way babies can survive on their own, right? So it's very likely that we'll be able to relate with at least one of Yujin's loved ones, if not with Yujin himself. Anyway, if the character Han Yoojin represents the real-life nurturing custodians, his overpowered skills represent how our custodians had helped and supported us. Such skills are not only admirable, but also very respectable. After all, it's thanks to these custodian skills that kept us fed and protected. Yujin's skills remind us of how valuable one's support could be. He doesn't put others down by overpowering them, but he pulls them up. And even if the people and creatures he helps are already on top, he pushes them to go even higher. And those are just some of the things that selfless love can accomplish. So of course, Even though Yujin's skills don't seem to be that grand in an action fantasy setting, there's no denying that they are incredibly useful, necessary, and relevant. One's achievements may not have been possible without the support of the loving custodian. That's how powerful and impactful it is. They can change lives. Of course, that makes Yujin's custodian title and skills worthy of high respect. So, do you agree or disagree? What are your thoughts about the custodianship in my S-Class Hunters? Or about Han Yoojin's traits and skills? Do you want a nurturer like Yujin? I would appreciate it if you can share your thoughts in the comment section. And if you had enjoyed this video, please click the like button. Aside from the comments, this also helps me determine who else loves webtoon topics like this. Of course, there's actually more to talk about that is related to this video, like more details on Yujin's parenthood or about his relationship with other characters. There's a lot to discuss about my S-Class Hunters in general too. So, to be notified of the latest releases, and if you want more videos like this, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and hope to see you again. Love ya and take care!